Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I want to thank all of you who are here with us and the lots of folks who are on Zoom with us as well. Welcome. I'm Gary Jenkins. I'm the Dean of Minnesota Law, and I can tell you that we have waited a long time to celebrate with you. And so we're really thrilled that you're here. Before I go any further, I just want to say that at the conclusion of this event, I hope that everyone who's here in person will join us upstairs one level. We'll be in our back commons. We have a reception with some food and refreshments. Now, we are here today to celebrate 8 very special, very distinguished faculty of this law school who have taken or are taking emeritus status at the end of this semester. And as you know, we typically celebrate retiring faculty at the end of the year when they retire, but we had to wait a little while longer, or a long while longer, I guess, for some of you due to the pandemic. So I just want to thank some of you for your patience, Brad, and for returning to celebrate today. But this is a celebration, and we really haven't gathered as a faculty to celebrate a faculty member taking emeritus status since May of 2019, which feels like a lifetime ago. But together, we have all been through a challenging journey, and I don't take for granted the opportunity that we have to be together and to celebrate and to connect. Now, before I begin and start talking about some of our retirees, I just want us to thank Olivia Kurtz and our great communications team for their work in developing this event. So, Olivia. Now, as I often say, a great faculty is truly the backbone of any great academic institution, and that's certainly true of this law school. Our faculty is chock full of thought leaders, highly sought after experts, pioneering researchers in law and interdisciplinary fields. We are tapped to serve on panels, commissions, and boards, to testify and spearhead projects, to write amicus briefs, to consult with governments and organizations of all types. And we've expanded and helped create new fields of study. I'm in stereo. That's okay. All making a significant contribution and impact on the world. Most importantly, our faculty are deeply committed teachers and mentors. Since the founding of Minnesota Law, our faculty have maintained a commitment to excellence in legal education, to support the process of learning and to educating students. And I know this in part because when I speak to members of the class of 1974 at a reunion, or the class of 2024 completing their first year, I hear our faculty described in the same ways. They say things like amazing, inspiring, dedicated, giants, thought-provoking, expert, committed, etc. Generations of faculty have developed lasting and impactful relationships with students and alumni and prepared students for varied and important careers. And the 8 faculty taking emeritus status today truly represent the best of our faculty and the best that this institution has to offer. Their unique contributions in scholarship, service, and in teaching have all shaped this law school and will leave a lasting legacy, both at Minnesota Law and in their respective fields of expertise for generations to come. We are all lucky to have had these faculty members with us for so long, and we are filled with gratitude for our time together and all that we've learned together. Now, I'm very excited about what's in store for us today. As is our tradition, I did ask members of our faculty to pay tribute to our retirees. However, we did things a little bit differently this year, and we worked with our great communications team to make tribute videos for each of you. So we're going to play some videos. So this is going to be a lot more interactive than perhaps it's been in the past. And also, we are gifting our retired faculty these beautiful chairs so that they will have Minnesota law chairs for their home so they can sit and read and relax and do all the things you do in retirement. I will tell you, you don't have to carry them home tonight. We will get them to you if you haven't received one already. So here's our plan for the program. For each year in which faculty have retired, I'm going to give some brief remarks. Then we'll show a video for those retirees. For our retirees that are here in attendance, you are welcome, but not required, to give some brief comments after all of the videos for your year have been shown. If you wish to do so, it's entirely up to you. So, let's start out with the one who's waited the longest, our May 2020 retiree, Brad Clary, class of 75. Great to see you here, Brad. Welcome. And as many of you know, Brad joined our faculty in 1999. He developed our legal writing and moot court programs, as well as our trial advocacy program. He also taught, and in Brad's case, I should say, still teaches, civil procedure, evidence, deposition skills, law and practice. He has authored 4 writing and litigation texts used by law students across the country. Brad served on the Communication Skills Committee of the ABA section on legal education. He also served on Minnesota Supreme Court's Advisory Committee on the Rules of Civil Appellate Procedure and on the court's Civil Justice Reform Task Force. He served a term as president of the Association of Legal Writing Directors. He is an elected member of the American Law Institute and an elected fellow of the American Bar Foundation. And in 2020, just before the pandemic, he received the prestigious Thomas F. Blackwell Memorial Award for Outstanding Achievement in the field of legal writing, presented by the Legal Writing Institute and the Association of Legal Writing Directors. So Brad's vision, his leadership, his expertise were critical in shaping and developing the legal writing and moot court programs here at Minnesota Law and really influence legal education beyond that, as well as the legal skills of more than 2 decades of our students. So thank you, Brad, for your many, many contributions to this law school, to our students, and to legal education. So let's watch the video.
One of my favorite stories about Brad is one day he came into my office with his student evaluations. And he said, "Chris, one of my students says that I'm a badass. Is that a good thing?" And I said, "Brad, yes, it's a good thing. And yes, in fact, you are a badass."
Brad Clary developed, ran, supervised, coordinated the law school's programs of appellate advocacy, legal writing, moot court, trial practice for some 17 years, and actually has been involved in legal writing in Minnesota for almost 40 years.
One of Brad's major contributions to the law school was building the legal writing program from the ground up. He curated a stable core of adjuncts who were dedicated to teaching, as dedicated as he was, and he fostered a strong desire among the students to teach legal writing as student instructors. He did a lot of work with the ABA. He's a member of the ALI. He was president of Allwood, which is the major organization for legal writing directors. He wrote many textbooks on complex litigation, depositions, legal writing, and appellate advocacy. But he would probably be the last one to tell you about all of his accomplishments. He's that kind of guy. He quietly goes about getting things done because they need to be done, never seeking recognition or attribution. But that didn't stop the national legal writing field from awarding him the Blackwell Award in 2019 to recognize all of his immense accomplishments and contributions to the field.
Brad has always been a source of good counsel and advice, and has always done so with great humility and always with a smile. But I would also say, don't mistake Brad's gentle demeanor, because he also has a brown belt in Taekwondo and he can take you out.
I was able to get some of Brad's student evaluations during our Blackwell nomination process. When asked what was their favorite part of 1 L orientation, quote, anything with Clary. Quote, Clary in general is awesome. He needs to teach every class. He is my role model for trial.
For me, Brad Clary is not just another colleague. He's much more than that. Let me quote what the provost said when Brad was awarded the University Teaching Award. She said, teachers don't come any better. I will tweak this a bit to say that human beings don't come any better. Because you see, in my book, Brad Clary gets the highest accolade. That is, he's a mensch.
So thanks, Gary. Thanks, Chris and Warren, for your kind remarks. Thanks to all of you and my colleagues for a wonderful teaching experience here at the law school over many years. And I gather I'm going to keep doing it for a while. And other than that, unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, I will surrender the mic and allow the show to go on.
Next, we honor our May 2021 faculty retirees, Steve Beffert, class of 74, Richard Frase, and Fred Morrison. First, let me start with Steve. Steve, I can't see. There he is. Steve is here, and it's great to see you, and Anne, and I think your daughters Anna and Grace are here as well. Welcome. So Steve is a son of the law school, and he returned to his alma mater as a faculty member in 1982. And as a national authority on labor and employment law, Steve has truly developed the field of labor and employment for decades, all while serving as a passionate and committed teacher. Steve, who ultimately became the Gray Plant Moody and Bennett Professor of Law, served as clinic director from 1982 to 2003, Associate Dean for Academic Affairs from 2000 to 2004, and Associate Dean for Research and Planning from 2002 to 2015. He was elected to the National Academy of Arbitrators and served as a co-editor of the Academy's annually published proceedings. He completed a term as secretary of the American Bar Association's Labor and Employment Law section, and formerly served as co-editor of the section-sponsored ABA Journal of Labor and Employment Law. He's also an elected fellow of the College of Labor and Employment Lawyers. Steve is a true teacher scholar. He has shaped the law at a national level, served our profession and served legal education with honor and with distinction, and has shaped the education and careers of so many generations of students. He has been a great friend, a great colleague, a team player, such an important and willing contributor to our scholarly community. Thank you for all that you've given to us, Steve. Next, we honor Richard Frase. Welcome, Richard. And Richard joined our faculty in 1977. He served as the Benjamin N. Berger Professor of Criminal Law. He continues to shape Minnesota and other state sentencing guidelines and make sense of punishment and proportionality theories, criminal procedure in the US and abroad, comparisons of sentencing law and practice. In addition to his scholarly focus in those areas of criminal law, Richard led our federal defense clinic, taught in the misdemeanor prosecution clinic, and in the federal prosecution clinic throughout his career. Richard served as co-director of the Robina Institute of Criminal Law and Criminal Justice, and as founder and co-director of the Institute's Sentencing Guidelines Resource Center and the Institute's Criminal History Enhancements Project. He is an elected member of the American Law Institute, as well as the American Society of Criminology and the advisory board of the Federal Sentencing Reporter. Now, as you all know, Richard is a prolific scholar who has really shaped the field of sentencing, all while serving as an impactful teacher and mentor to others, our students, of course, but also others in the field. The world is so much better for having Richard's work and his voice on that critically important part of American law. So thank you, Richard, for all that you've done. Congratulations. And finally, among our May 2021 retirees, we honor Fred Morrison. While Fred and Charlotte had planned to be with us, they had a last-minute conflict that developed. They will be okay, but they weren't able to attend today. But they will watch the video, and we wish them well. Fred joined our faculty in 1969. 1969. That means Fred has been part of Minnesota law for almost half of its existence. And as I said, at Fred's 50th year celebration of teaching at our law school back in fall of 2019, that he's been a foundational pillar of our community, a rock of our community. An international and comparative law scholar, Fred was instrumental in the launch of our LLM program, our SJD program, and has led many of our international partnerships. He served as interim dean twice, once in 1994-95, and again 2006 to 2008. And during his time at Minnesota Law, Fred held the knowledge of this law school's values and its history. I still have a really helpful transition memo that Fred wrote to me when I started to help understand our processes and structures. Fred retired as the Popham Hake Lindquist and Benham Professor of Law. His teaching and scholarship in international law led him to serve as an advisor and counselor to the U.S. Department of State, the International Court of Justice, and the Iran-U.S. Claims Tribunal. He also served on numerous advisory boards for law schools and research institutes in China, Germany, and Japan, including the prestigious Max Planck Institute on Foreign Public Law and International Law in Heidelberg. Fred not only contributed to the law school community, but he was also an active force in university faculty governance. I don't think there was anyone who knew our benefits plan better than Fred. I won't talk about all of his university service, but I will say that he was honored with the university's President's Award for Outstanding Service. And he too is a member of the American Law Institute. Fred will always be a part of our law school and served it so loyally for more than 50 years. He's been a true friend and colleague. So congratulations. Thank you to Fred. So now for Steve, Richard, and Fred, let's go to the videotape.
In 1982, the law school engaged on a hiring spree, and Bob Stein was dean at the time, and Ann Burkhart, Steve Beffert, and I were all hired to start in that June, July period of that year. And we developed a relationship. We knew we were the newbies, and looked to each other for support.
He's so generous with his time, he's so kind, and he's such a good instructor. He has so much experience, practical experience, as well as such a wealth of knowledge. And he's had literally thousands of students since he's been here. They all love him.
We talk in the academic circles about having to satisfy 3 basic requirements: teaching, scholarship, and service. And Steve has done all those so well for so many years. It's just unbelievable. When we'd have professors join us, brand new professors over the years, I'd have lunch with them and say, if you want to learn how to teach, go visit Steve Beffert's classes, and he'd be happy to have you visit them.
He is the most remarkably versatile person. He's been so good to the law school in so many ways, serving as associate dean, not once, but twice. He is currently serving as the chair of the International Law Society for Labor Law, which is incredible recognition and very well deserved. So it shows he's operating on a world stage as well as here at home.
Our clinical program is one of the best in the country. He built that program for 20 years. He was the director of that program, and that's where we are today because of Steve's work in that area.
Steve is the ultimate reasonable person. You can always count on him to be very, grounded, to be very thoughtful, to be even-handed.
He's always smiling, always positive, willing to be there to help. His office door is open for students and colleagues.
We've taken students on canoe trips for the senior auction, state fair. We've had so much fun together.
When I know each of us has had opportunities to go teach elsewhere, sometimes at schools higher ranked, but there's just something special about working with colleagues like Steve that makes it a place that you want to stay at.
Richard is a world-renowned expert in sentencing and sentencing reform. He is a walking clearinghouse of information about practices here in Minnesota and across the nation and across the world. He's just made lasting contributions to our understanding of how sentencing works. And I know in my own personal interactions with him, when I have questions and conundrums that I'm trying to sort out, you don't get a perfunctory email from him, you get a mini treatise. And it is filled with insight, and it is filled with deep understanding and generosity.
He never takes shortcuts. He never does anything halfway. He doesn't send you feedback on your work until he's really thought about it. He has so many talents, but he has this incredible sort of diligence and unselfishness.
It kind of feels like he brings a Minnesotan's sensibility to hard problems in the criminal law. You're cold, put another layer on, and just keep going. And I think that models for students what they'll need to do when they confront difficult problems in their practice.
He's really spent a career not just in his office researching and writing, but getting out and talking to practitioners and judges and agency officials and legislators, and then trying to apply the skills of an academic and a researcher to help and to contribute and to make the world better.
The other great thing about Richard as a colleague is that he makes me feel so much better about my messy office, because his is just legendarily overstuffed with stuff. But it's just evidence of layers of learning and the ways in which he has accumulated over time so much by way of knowledge, and knowledge that has come in forms that will continue to last.
I think he's just had over and over again phases of his career where he has concentrated on important subjects, learned from practitioners, really applied himself and thought carefully about the details and the big picture. His work will be something that people think about for some time to come. But when you ask what his legacy will be, part of me just has a sinking feeling of how are we going to get on without him.
Many people know Fred as a law school legend. Whenever there was any kind of difficult question to answer, any faculty governance issue, anything about the law school, the default always was, go ask Fred.
He is a leading American scholar on international law, and indeed has the practical experience of being part of an American delegation in a case before the International Court of Justice in The Hague. Fred is also a nationally recognized scholar in state and government law. And in this subject too, he has extraordinary practical experience, serving as the director of a study commission that led to the revisions in the Constitution of the state of Minnesota. Another important way Fred has served the law school has been through his remarkable leadership in the university's shared governance system.
I had the opportunity to work with Fred in his role as one of the advisors to the university on its health benefits. And he spearheaded the entire process of creating a new health plan for the University of Minnesota. And it's something that he doesn't get a lot of attention for, but it has been a huge contribution to the university. I think everyone would describe Fred as an absolute delight of a colleague, whether it was a student who was struggling in a class or a colleague that wanted to bounce something off of him. He had so much wisdom and so much experience and was so giving. He wasn't just an outstanding scholar or an outstanding teacher or an outstanding leader in the university. He was all of those things.
Professor Morrison will long be celebrated for his accomplishments as a member of the faculty of the law school. We wish him well in his retirement and look forward to his continuing presence among us.
Well, the floor is open. Again, not required, but Steve or Richard, if you'd like the microphone. You want to come on down? Sure, come on down so that people on Zoom can see you.
Amanda. Basically two things. I wanted to thank both John and Ann. You know, it was a 40 years together. It's really amazing run. Supposed to go up here?
People on Zoom want to see you.
I'm so short, it's better if I'm up there a bit. 40 years together, and I'm just so lucky to be with two colleagues that are such excellent and dedicated teachers, and also to the institution. So it's been a fun run. Thanks. Thank you, Gary, particularly for hiring two new labor and employment faculty. I will stop lobbying now, but they're both great. We'll enjoy them. But finally, the last thing I wanted to say is, you notice the video sort of showed a real progression in hair loss. And maybe a punchline to that is 30 years ago when I shaved my beard off, I ran into Richard Frase in the hallway and he said, you know, I was thinking about shaving my beard, but then I saw you. Thank you, Richard.
Nice chair. Al, I got you beat in the hair department in a perverse sort of way. Well, thanks, Gary, and to Olivia and the staff for organizing all this. Thanks especially to Susanna and Kevin for those really kind remarks. I have a lot to be grateful for beyond what I just said, and I guess I will just make one point, which I learned from my mother. Yes, as it said in the video, I work hard. I always have. Brigitte said, you work too hard, you work all the time. And I'm proud of what I've done from all that hard work. But as my mother said, you must never forget all the advantages you've been given. And I will always be grateful to her for that insight and for all the advantages I've been given, including this great faculty and this great place for 44 years.
Now we will honor our December 2021 retiree, Michael Tonrey. Unfortunately, Michael couldn't be with us today. As we know, his retirement is taking place in Italy. But we wish him all of the best. Michael joined the law school in 1990, serving as the McKnight Presidential Professor of Criminal Law and Policy. His work leading the Institute on Crime and Public Policy and his contributions and prolific scholarship as an author and editor continue to make a tremendous impact in the field of criminal law and criminal justice, making him among the most widely cited scholars in the field. Michael is a scientific member of Germany's Max Planck Society, and even just last year, he was awarded a prestigious Guggenheim Fellowship. So he's working on a book in retirement from his Guggenheim. So we thank Michael for his many years and contributions to this law school, to criminal law theory, and to our students, and we're really grateful for his contributions. So let's watch his video.
I think it's fair to say that Michael is, has been, was a mentor to every member of our criminal law faculty. And not just a mentor, but a colleague who, ascended to great heights pretty early on in his career and used his stature in the field to help bring the rest of us along.
His studies of crime and punishment across different societies in the West has always been informed by a deep reading in philosophy, in history, in literature, and he brings all those perspectives and bodies of knowledge together and allows them to inform the way that he thinks about the most concrete of dilemmas within the criminal justice system. And that kind of integration, I think, has been so important in the field.
From his early work on policy reform to his publication of, I think, almost 100 books and probably 200 articles, to his ability to convene all of the leading intellects, he is among the most prominent, influential, prolific, and well-regarded scholars of his time.
He's a kind of dynamo in his ability to create new fields and subfields. I think he has now, it's fair to say, shaped the intellectual agenda of several generations of scholars.
I recall talking to some students about a seminar Michael was teaching through the lens of Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, and several of them described it as the most intellectually rich and provocative and challenging experience that they'd had, in any educational forum. Even at a point in his career when a lot of people are, no longer producing, certainly at the level that they were, he hasn't stopped, and he only recently became a Guggenheim Fellow.
A legacy implies that someone has completed their work, and as near as I can tell, he's nowhere close to being finished with the kinds of projects that he has been working on.
Speaking of Michael's legacy, Richard Frase, who is also retiring and has known Michael since he began at the law school in 1990. Richard says more than anyone else, Michael gave the law school the national and international stature that put us at the very top of U.S. law school criminal law faculties In the words of Barry Feld, Michael will be remembered as one of the premier criminologists of his generation. Barry says he is a scholar who brought passion, a deep sense of justice, and fundamental human decency to his work.
Now we'll conclude by honoring our faculty who are taking emeritus status in May 2022. Brad Kirkarian, Bertritzer, and Judith Younger. First, let me start with Brad. Brad joined our faculty in 2004. I know Brad is joining us on Zoom, by the way. His contributions in the field of environmental and natural resources law have been instrumental in building the law school's reputation in this area. He has made a great impact in the field and certainly shaped the paths of so many of our students and alumni. Brad, who is the Henry J. Fletcher Professor of Law, is a truly interdisciplinary scholar, and he has authored numerous monographs and book chapters and articles in leading legal and social science journals centered on innovative strategies for environmental regulation and natural resource management, with an emphasis on mechanisms that promote the continuous adaptive learning, flexibility, transparency, and policy integration. An active political and campaign organizer before becoming a lawyer, he was instrumental in the launch of the university's Institute on the Environment. Brad, thank you for your many contributions as a scholar, as a colleague, as a friend, and savior of our environment. Next, we honor Bertritzer. Welcome, Bert. Thank you for being here. Bert joined our faculty in 2009 and has made an enormous difference in his, a baker's dozen of years here with us. His work in empirical legal studies, the legal profession, the work of lawyers and other aspects of the American civil justice system and state judicial selection, it continues to shape policy and work in all of those important areas. His unique background also significantly contributed to the law school's interdisciplinary reputation and imagined new avenues for legal education and scholarship, making him among the most cited law and social science scholars in the country. Bert, who has held the Marvin J. Sonsky Chair in Law and Public Policy, is a prolific scholar, having written more than 100 journal articles and book chapters. He is an associate editor of the Journal of Empirical Legal Studies, the former editor of Law and Society Review, and a regular peer reviewer for leading political science, law, and social science journals. Bert has received the Law and Society Association's Legacy Award, as well as its Ronald Pipkin Service Award for sustained and extraordinary service. He also served as editor of the Law and Society Review by the association. Bert, you have shaped so much of how we think about our justice system and the profession. I thank you for your contributions to the field, to the law school, and for being a great part of our community for so long, and I hope you'll continue to do so. Thanks, Bert. And finally, we honor Judith Younger, a true visionary and leader in legal education. She started in law teaching in 1967. Unfortunately, Judith couldn't be with us today, but hopefully we will see her later on. Judith joined the law school faculty in 1984 and served as the Joseph E. Wargo Anoka County Bar Association Professor of Family Law. Say that 3 times fast. As a law professor, she has taught at 6 different law schools, including ours, and served as dean of the Syracuse Law School. And she has shaped the field of reproductive rights and family law. Judith also served on the Minnesota Board of Professional Responsibility. She's done so many things in service to Minnesota law, but I'd be remiss for not remarking on the fact that she has served as a longtime faculty advisor to TORT, our Theater of the Relatively Talentless, and has graced us all with the pleasure of her performances through the years. She has received the Stanley v. Kenyon Teacher of the Year Award. She is a member of the American Law Institute. She is a pioneer in legal education in her field and has led the way for generations of female law professors, serving as an inspiration for so many. And we congratulate Judith on her deserving move to emeritus status. So thank you again, Brad, Bert, and Judith. Let's go to the videotape.
I'd say Professor Kirkarian was one of the most remarkably versatile members of the faculty, had a really eclectic, interesting, I think really useful background. He had studied philosophy at Princeton, and he was a community organizer after that in Massachusetts and for the environment. Then he was the chief of staff for the most famous reform councilman in Chicago, which was quite a variety of things. After that, he decided he wanted to be a law professor, so he went to Yale.
Professor Kirkarian was one of the founders of our environmental law concentration when we developed that for students over 10 years ago. He's been a key member of our environmental law faculty and has really been just sort of the grounding force of our environmental law program.
His classes were dense, they were about lots of data and lots of regulations in the real world. And students, they had this sort of mindset, I'd say it's Kirkarian. They were just changed forever by him, and they loved him very much.
Professor Kirkarian has been really the leading scholar involving environmental disclosures. There's federal laws that govern that, and he's written some of the most groundbreaking articles on how those laws should be used.
I think a lot of the things he wrote, people don't really fully grasp the implications of. And I think long after he's gone, people will be reading and rereading these articles and seeing how much ahead of the game he was on things. His work on water and the Great Lakes, it's really some of the most remarkable work that ever happened in the law school.
He was a very important mentor to me. He always was so generous with his time in terms of giving me comments on my law review articles and helping me develop as a scholar. He also seems to have amazing facts about everything, not just environmental law, but history and politics and economics, and he's always able to share those at exactly the appropriate time.
He was a great law professor, but he was also a great person, and he was very interested in the real world. And sometimes academia and the real world move apart, but he was always interested in thinking about how you could actually affect people's lives and change things. And he was ready to get into the mess of it and to realize that it was complex and to recognize errors and to fix things, to listen and fix things.
When Bert started, he was one of the pioneers of thinking about law in a different way, using his empirical methods as a political scientist and drawing on those methods to answer really important legal questions. He has literally written the books on how to do empirical legal scholarship. He's brought those classes to our students, and he has this national and really international reputation as one of the best empirical legal scholars ever, and we've really benefited from that on our faculty.
He's just the real thing as a scholar and as an academic and as a professor. We have these summer square tables at which one does really preliminary, not even works in progress, works in pre-progress. And some of the most valuable comments I've gotten over the years are from him, not even just in the workshop. He'll write to me afterwards with reference after reference, and I know he does this with many colleagues. He's just engaged, useful, and very much in with what I would characterize as the Minnesota spirit, which is let's make everybody smarter. Let's make everybody do their best work.
I have a very vivid memory of my visit to the University of Minnesota when I was still trying to decide whether to join the faculty, and Professor Bertritzer was my host and took me on the most awesome, winding tour of the Twin Cities. We saw the different lakes, we saw the different neighborhoods, and I think that's indicative of how he engages with his peers here on faculty and with students and really with everyone in the building.
This is sort of a joke, but sort of not. It's his ties. The guy's got giraffe ties. He's got more than one giraffe tie. It's amazing. And he's got such a flair for book titles. One of his recent ones, When Lawyers Screw Up. I mean, that is a great title. And even if you're totally uninterested in the subject, although how could anyone be, don't you want to read it? Don't you want to know? I sure do. And I don't want to just say, oh, he's good at coming up with titles. He's good at writing the books that have these titles, and I think that pretty much says it all.
He's given us great examples of how you answer really tough questions about the law and really uncover how the law actually works, not the way we think it works or the way we hope it works. He's had tremendous studies, for instance, on how state court judges are elected or appointed and how that affects the way that they make decisions. And these real-world observations, again, about how the law really works are really foundational for the work that we do, and I think probably for generations to come.
Judith Younger was a path-breaking law student. When she graduated from NYU Law School in the 1950s, she clerked for a federal judge, very unusual for a female law graduate of that era. She was the first woman that judge had ever hired as a clerk, and getting the job required Judith to convince NYU's dean that he should help her. Getting him on board required more than one visit, but she did it. In 1974, she became the dean of Syracuse Law School. She was the first female dean they ever had, and the first woman to be a dean of a law school in New York State. In fact, when Judith Younger was a dean at Syracuse, she was only one of 6 nationwide women deans. Judith was a path-breaking family law professor. She and her students helped guide reform efforts in New York State, which transformed the family law of that state from one that had always spoken in terms of husbands and wives, mothers and fathers, so that it now spoke in terms of spouses and parents.
What I adore about Judith is she represents the values involved in law teaching that I was taught when I was a newbie law professor were what I should aspire to. And it's the idea that it's not how popular you are with students that count, it's whether you challenge them. The very hard things about that era, the era in which she began, is the need simultaneously to be an authority figure. At the same time, if as a woman you're not liked, students are much less forgiving than they were for the men of that era. With the men, you could be liked or you could be respected. You didn't necessarily have to be both. Women mostly had to be both. And it was walking something tightrope simply to establish yourself as an authority in your field, and she did that beautifully.
In October 1975, she participated in a public debate on the Equal Rights Amendment. Judith spoke in favor of the amendment, which would have prohibited discrimination based on sex. Her opponent was Phyllis Schlafly, who led the Stop ERA movement, which ultimately blocked the amendment's ratification. Since 2008, she has taught the law of reproductive rights, making Minnesota one of the few law schools to regularly offer that important class.
When students wanted to go in a different direction or thought the course needed to be updated, I saw her modernize the course in a way that, as one of the people who helped invent the field, is sometimes hard to do, but it was the dedication to the students and the student learning experience, and that mix of sticking to her guns and flexibility that I really appreciated about her.
First, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Claire. But mainly, I just want to thank you all for welcoming me, an outsider in most senses of the word, to this law faculty, and for providing the support both in terms of individuals, but also in terms of the institution, to have perhaps one of the most productive periods of my now 48 years as a university professor. And just, I want to thank you.
I too had one of those great tours of the Twin Cities from Bert when I was being recruited here. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you all for our faculty who so generously contributed their thoughtful comments to the video tributes. How about those videos, right? And thank you again to Olivia Kurtz, our communications team, for their work in developing the event. This was really special. And of course, thank you to all of our retirees for the impact you have made and continue to make on this law school, our faculty, and on our students and alumni. You have truly shaped us, and your contributions will last generations. Thank you. Let's go upstairs. Let's enjoy each other's company and some food and drink.